In a world where power dynamics are constantly shifting, the relationship between the United States and Nigeria is under strain. The US has long been a champion of human rights and democracy, but its recent actions towards Nigeria raise questions about limits of its influence. With the reinstatement of sanctions over ethno-religious violence, Nigeria finds itself at the center of a complex geopolitical storm. Tonight, I'll be joined by Dr. Franklin Onyemaechi Ogbunweze, a leading expert on human rights and genocide prevention, who will dissect the implications of this development for Nigeria's sovereignty, the region's stability, and the global order. Can the US effectively balance its commitment to human rights with its strategic interests, or will this approach ultimately undermine its influence in Africa? This is the Eastern Eye. I am Alex Ogbodo. You're welcome to the Eastern Eye, a program that X-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. The global order is often shaped by subtle shifts in power and diplomacy, but the recent tensions between the United States and Nigeria over the ethno-religious violence and human rights abuses represent a significant moment in international relations. As a major player on the global stage, Nigeria's stability and security have far-reaching implications. Tonight, we'll explore the implications of US sanctions and the complex dynamics at play in the unfolding story. Dr. Franklin Onyemaechi Ogbunweze joins me now from Frankfurt, Germany. He is an independent human rights consultant and former director for genocide prevention in Africa at the CSI in Switzerland. Dr. Ogbunweze, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'm glad to be with you tonight.
I mean, typically when America says they are not happy with you, you are supposed to start trembling, isn't it? On face value, you should be scared to death. You should be having nightmares. Or isn't that the case?
Thank you very much, Alex, and good evening, viewers from all around the world. The United States happens to be the only major power in the world today. China has actually gotten to that stage as well. So when a world power that is armed to the teeth, that is known for causing chaos and exporting its version of democracy and freedom, which some experts calls America's deadliest export, backs at you, you have a cause to stand and pause. Right now, the focus is on Nigeria. Well, the Venezuelans will say as much, that the focus is on Venezuela. America has a lot to distract people from. First of all, there is an ongoing genocide in Gaza, and there needs to be a distraction because America is financing and funding it. We have a problem in Venezuela. The American government is murdering people without due process. So they need to distract people from that as well. So the American government needs also to distract people from the internal dynamics in the American domestic politics as well. But that doesn't nullify the fact that there is an ongoing genocide by installment in the middle belt of Nigeria. The Nigerian government cannot deny that. And we should not pose a Nelson's eye to that as well. These are issues. Two things could be correct at the same time. America may be trying to distract people from its own major problems, while as well casting the focus on Nigeria, where actually there is an over preponderance of slaughter against Nigerian Christians, especially in the Middle Belt.
So, what are the primary drivers of ethno-religious violence in Nigeria? Or, I mean, how have these factors contributed to the country's designation under the U.S. Executive Order on International Religious Freedom?
Well, the answers are embedded in the question. What are the causes of ethno-religious problems or conflicts in Nigeria? Ethnic and religious reasons, as simple as that. A lot of people believe that their religion is the most important and that they are ready to kill for their gods. Some other people believe that their tribes and their ethnic nationalities are more important and that for that they are ready to murder and slaughter other people. So these are not rational reasons as much as they are emotive. But be that as it may, Nigeria has had a history of that because Nigeria, let's look at the history. Nigeria is a collection of federated grievances. Nigerians were not consulted when Nigeria was created. So the British just came in and then brought strange bedfellows together and asked them, you better exist under our fiat or you perish together. So Nigeria was just a creation of imperial convenience. And what we are saying today is the messy afterlife of colonialism. So, and the Nigerian elite have not been able to create a functional society out of these disparate ethnic nationalities that we are welded together by the British. So that's one of the major problems. What we are saying is a messy afterlife of colonialism or the colonial project everywhere. That doesn't mean that colonialism has ended. No, it took other gaps and is still in existence. Be it in the exploitation of resources of indigenous peoples, be it in major powers lording into others. That's international politics. But the major problem with Nigeria, Chinua Achebe articulated it as a failure of leadership. I see it quite differently. I don't want to disagree with Achebe because Achebe is one of our greatest intellectuals. But neocolonialism plays a role as well because the British or the colonial masters on leaving Africa handed power over to their houseboys. They didn't hand power over to the people that the people actually wanted. They chose their warrant chiefs and gave them power. Every major African president that you see today is a glorified warrant chief. So he is serving at the pleasure of some Western capital. That's why Paul Biya could win an election in Cameroon at the age of over 90 or 100 years, as the case may be. And then Tinubu could steal an election in Nigeria and nothing happens. So these are the people that are ruling across the continent. And it's equally unfortunate because that's what leads to problems. And that's why coups are becoming today in vogue again. And then we are seeing, and these governments are not answerable to their people. To that end, they are not even ready to do anything to uplift the welfare of their people. That's why Nigerian government tolerates this egregious violation of religious freedom, especially in the Middle Belt, and that of Christians as well. So that America labeled as a country of particular concern is not because the Nigerian government is actively fomenting religious crisis, but because the Nigerian government is tolerating it. And if you read the articles of the International Religious Freedom Act that the American Congress passed in 1998, it says a country is designated as a country of particular concern when the country actively foments or tolerates this egregious violation of religious rights. And Nigeria is guilty of the second one, if not the first, because some Nigerian politicians have been fingered as supporting most of these violent conflicts, especially across the Middle Belt and northern Nigeria regions of Nigeria.
Two things that I got from your response. First of all, you said that a country is a conglomeration of I mean, it's rather funny. I won't go to that now. Let me move ahead and not take you backwards. The country or its leaders are tolerating what is triggering America's designating the country as a place of concern. But is this a wake-up call? But we've been seeing different responses from even people who are not in government. Some of their statements can be considered inflammatory, especially if an American president has said something. You find people saying, okay, we defend ourselves if this happens. Does this really call for people in Nigeria to start saying, okay, we defend ourselves against the US? Or does it call for a proper soul searching for those who are tolerating the violence we are talking about? Is there an opportunity for the government to take another look at their approach?
I sincerely believe that if the Nigerian authorities are populated by people who can use their heads, thinking people, they should have heard this bank long ago. When Wole Soyinka called Nigeria an open sore of the continent, he wasn't mincing words. So this rot didn't start today. Nelson Mandela have had a cause to say that Nigeria is a disgrace to Africa. And he wasn't wrong about that. So we didn't start our decline, our descent into the abyss today. So what the Americans just confirmed with Trump, somebody like Trump, labeling Nigeria a very dangerous country or a disgraced country, is an indictment on the character and the quality of leaders we have had across time in Nigeria. So, we used to sing in the national anthem, the labors of our heroes past shall not be in vain. In fact, the labors, we don't have heroes in Nigeria. And the labors of those our so-called heroes, they should be in vain because they labored for nothing. They did not do anything to make Nigeria a very functional state. Okay, so they didn't have any labels that that one could look back to and be proud of. So these labels should be in vain, I tell you. But the fundamental issue is, are Nigerians ready to critically appraise the issues in the light of rationality and find ways to stop the bleeding in the Middle Belt, to stop the insecurity across the entire country? The elite are just like people on the Titanic. The Titanic was sinking, and the people in the first class, the elite, were eating caviar and dancing to music. That's what is happening in Nigeria. If it's gonna be a wake-up call, I can't say that because I haven't seen enough seriousness in our leadership echelon to believe that that is possible. I watched Daniel Bwala on Russian Today television granting an interview. He was accusing IPOB of telling the American government that Nigeria is committing genocide against Christians. Every major human rights organization has been pointing to this genocide by installment that is going on in the Middle Belt. My organization, while I worked for the Christian Solidarity International in Switzerland, we reported variously on that. We wrote an open letter to Buhari, warning him about the imminence of genocide in the Middle Belt of Nigeria. There are many other organizations that I cannot even mention. So Bwala accusing IPOB or the Igbos or the New Biafran separatists telling the American government is a genuine way of trying to, bury his head in the sand, because the Americans have embassies in Nigeria. The Americans have their agents. The American satellite has mapped every major square kilometer of Nigeria. They know what is happening. They see what is happening. They have agents, Nigerian politicians that are agents of the CIA that report to them. So they are in the know of what is happening. But when a Nigerian politician rises up to say, no, it is a section of these people, or it's Peter Obi that went and told the Americans that Nigeria is committing genocide against Christians, that is silly. And that is the inability to see or to wake up and smell the coffee. So our politicians are really a very funny lot. I don't know if this...
You pointed at something that really, in your first response, you talked about, yes, that the reason for the problem is ethno-religious. So for somebody like Daniel Bwala to go on international TV and say that, well, it's because of a particular part of the country, that's why Nigeria suddenly became a country of particular concern. So let's just assume that the Southeast is not part of the country. So what would it be? How would the rest of the country sort itself out?
Well, let me just add something to that issue. Remember, this is not the very first time that Nigeria has been placed under countries of particular concern. The first Trump administration did exactly that. It was Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken. Blinken came to Nigeria and removed Nigeria from that because the Council on Foreign Relations, which is one of the major think tanks that actually formulate policy for the American government, they spent decades ignoring the warnings of human rights activists on the ground. They spent decades saying that what is going on in the Middle Belt is a result of climate change. If you read their articles, it was splashed over their website then. All of a sudden, that brings you to think, what changed all of a sudden? This thing, is it because the Republican president is in power? This think tank that spent decades telling the whole world that what is happening in Nigeria is a farmer-herder crisis, clash. Okay? That is as a result of climate change. All of a sudden, the American government changed its tune to say, no, it is a religious persecution, it's a religious genocide. What has changed? That brings me into another dimension to it all. Many Nigerians, especially the victims of this genocide going on in the Middle Belt of Nigeria, will be very happy because, a man who is being killed will welcome anybody that will give him a reprieve or a respite. But America is not an innocent bystander. Okay? Empires don't go to war, or empires don't threaten war because of morality. If it's because of morality, the genocide in Gaza would have ended long ago. empires go to war, empires threaten war because of their interests. So these interests, what are the interests that America has in Nigeria? These are the questions that Nigerians should ask themselves as well. So, but the issues are very, very clear. Ethno-religious crisis in Nigeria is as old as the history of Nigeria coming together. Okay? But in as much as that is the case, that doesn't justify Nigerian government officials refusing to face the facts on the ground and then trying to place blames on one section of the country or the other. They are trying to exacerbate the problem. They are not trying to solve it. And this is a way of living in a fantasy island. And that's what actually angers me about, I believe that we have a poverty of ideas dominating the decision-making bodies across Nigeria. And it's a pity. And so I don't see Nigeria getting out of this problem anytime soon, of solving insecurity as a problem, because we don't have thinking people as governors or as leaders or as policymakers in Nigeria today. Most of our thinkers are in some foreign capitals trying to, fertilize those areas with their brains, because Nigeria is so quite inclement for them and for their, intellectual exercise. So we are where we are today because we have refused to think as a people. We have allowed our sentiments and our emotions to carry us through. Emotions don't make policy. What makes policy is hard thinking, hard rational and critical analysis of issues. Anybody who has refused to do that will face what the Americans have given us today. It's a wake-up call. Whether we will heed that is, still in the wind. I don't know.
Now, what warning signs do you see in Nigeria's current situation? Because at the end of the day, something will need to give way, something will need to shift. I mean, what measures can be taken to prevent further escalation of violence? Because obviously, something will have to stop or something will need to start. What do you think it should be?
Well, what I think is, what is the function of government? The fundamental, the raison d'etre of every government is the protection of lives and property of its citizens. Any government that fails in this metric has failed, actually. That government has no reason to exist anymore. The Nigerian government across several administrations has had no reason to exist, because they have failed in the primary statutory responsibility they owe their citizens, which is protection of lives and property. Security. If you read Thomas Hobbes, when he was articulating his theory about the state of nature, in a state of nature, there is fear of violent death. Nigeria is in a state of nature today because everybody is afraid of violent death. Okay? And in such a situation, there is no progress. There is no development. And he concluded by saying that the life of man becomes solitary, nasty, brutish, and short. And that's exactly what the Nigerian situation today is. A Nigerian does not believe that he will travel from Enugu to Abuja and arrive safely without being kidnapped or killed. The elite don't ply the roads, they fly. Okay, so they don't know what the poor masses are suffering. So, and they are immune from the problem. So they don't have any incentive to make things better. Okay, so that's where the problem lies. Something will give. Okay, there is this African proverb that says that the child that we refuse to show warmth today will burn down the village to feel that warmth. And that's what is happening. Nigeria has disappointed its youth. Nigeria has disappointed every other person. Nigeria is just created for the eternal inconvenience of its inhabitants. These are facts. But what can we do? First of all, we need credible leadership. When Nigerians take money to vote their brother into power, who doesn't know anything, this is the result. When people believe that Tinubu is a president that can solve Nigeria's problems, this is the result. We are saying it. When Nigerians believe that Buhari is the president that could solve this is the result. Over the years, we have had a leadership that is actually mentally and intellectually bankrupt. We don't talk about morality, because all of them, they are just there for themselves. They don't give a hoot about, and that's what is called the match of folly. A society will collapse when the leadership doesn't have the mental capacity or the competence to guide the society aright. So you can tell me, what has 8 years of APC attained or achieved for Nigeria? Now we are a laughing stock in the Committee of Nations, and we are all seeing it. So Americans are threatening us over and above Article 2.4 of the United Nations Convention, which says that no nation has a right to threaten violence or war against the other. But today we are being told if we don't stop the killing of Christians in Nigeria, the American boots will land on our ground. And the Nigerian government, if you read their response, you will have a cause to shed tears. We don't have a government. That's what it is in Nigeria. I am sorry, that is the fact. If you have a government, why are people still being kidnapped in Nigeria? Someday they will kidnap your president in Aso Rock if nothing is done, because the bandits are almost everywhere. And the Nigerian government claims not to know. It is either the Nigerian government knows who these people are and is using them to attain its own political ends, or it doesn't know. And either way, it's a vote of no confidence on that leadership. That leadership should resign.
Now, Nigeria is a critical player in regional and global affairs. But how do you think this whole current tension with the US will affect the country's role in Africa and international organizations?
Yeah, Nigeria used to be a critical player. Not anymore. We have lost all that respect. Nigeria, for the past 2 or 3 years and some months, doesn't have an ambassador in Washington this year. Can you imagine that? We don't have an ambassador in Washington. Okay? The United States is a major superpower, and we don't have a representative that will be representing our interests there since Tinubu came to power. So, and how could you be a serious player in international politics when you are not in the kitchen? Then you will be cooked. So we used to be, but we have lost that respect. No country respects, not even in Africa. Look at the Sahelians, Niger, Mali, Senegal, and all the rest. They have formed the bloc, broke away from ECOWAS. Why? Because they don't believe in the leadership of Nigeria and other, powers there in ECOWAS. So Nigeria used to be, but not anymore. And nobody takes us seriously anymore because they could see the corruption of our elite, the dysfunctionality of our government, and the underdevelopment of our people. They see all this, they read it. So the internet has democratized the way people approach knowledge today. So we can see what is happening everywhere. So nobody takes Nigeria seriously anymore. Okay, if they want to deport a Nigerian citizen from anywhere, they just dump him wherever they want. But if Nigeria is a major player, before you harm a Nigerian citizen anywhere, you have to consult the Nigerian consulate or embassy. But who consults them? Nobody. So we used to be a player, and the earlier we stop deceiving ourselves that we still matter, the better for us. And that will teach us to sit down and do our homework on how to uplift our country. I used to tell my friends while I was at the university here in Frankfurt that unless an African country becomes a major power, that no African will gain respect anywhere. And that's correct, and that's still true till today. And Nigeria has disappointed Africa. I'm sorry to tell you that.
I mean, you raised a very important point. Imagine that the US had this to tell the country, but we don't have an ambassador in Washington. I mean, who could have hurried and maybe done some legwork for us while the president or anyone back home will prepare for whatever response they want to give. But you don't even have someone who is the real ambassador there. I mean, there are diplomats all over the place, but then there is no ambassador designate. I mean, how does it portray the country?
As unserious, it portrays the country as an unserious entity that shouldn't be taken seriously in anything. And that's what people are. People are paying us the kind of disrespect that we have actually heaped upon ourselves. And that's where the problem lies. We see every other person as our problem except looking in the mirror. Okay, and without that critical self-analysis, Nigeria cannot make a headway. We actually need, this is where I would defer to Plato. Plato says that unless a philosopher becomes a king, or kings become philosophers, then there is no hope for the polis, there's no hope for the city. There's no hope for Nigeria because those who are governing us at various levels don't have the intellectual capacity to govern. Because if you have a vision as a leader, you would have known that if you don't have an ambassador in one of the most important capitals in the world, that it will have an adverse effect on your diplomacy. But we don't have that vision. We are still, engrossed in gastronomic issues about our stomach and stomach infrastructure, what the Nigerians call it, to see where the world is heading to. There are capitals that are very important that you should have robust engagement with those countries. Nigeria, United States is one of them. China is another one. Even Russia. Nigeria used to be a leader in the non-allied movement in the 60s and 70s. But all that has gone down the drain today. The countries that were in this movement with us are graduating into the first world today. Countries like India. And the United States cannot bully India anyhow. If you, the United States told the Indians to stop buying Russian gas and selling to Europeans. The Indian foreign minister told them off. But can you imagine Tinubu going to the White House to discuss this with Trump? He will get a worse treatment than Zelensky got when he was asking for weapons for Ukraine. So these are the issues that we really is a wake-up call for Nigerians and Nigerians lovers everywhere. We really need to sit up. We have disappointed ourselves. We have performed below our potentials. Nigeria is a country made up of infinite potentials, but we have been unable to articulate these potentials and channel it towards development and the upliftment of ourselves and humanity in general. And that's how it's a pity, actually.
You describe the country as a place of federated grievances. It's a very, very strong statement. And, well, when you look at it, it looks like, well, we don't have any other choice. What is precipitating these grievances? And is there a chance that we'll come to a point where these grievances will be taken care of? And could this be the turning point the country needed?
Well, Nigeria was created in that in that instance or situation. Divide et impera is the way of empire, divide and conquer. So Nigerians were divided and brought together, and then they will be fighting against each other till. So it kept them busy from focusing on the British that were exploiting them at that moment in time. And when that ended, our elite became white men in black faces. They took over that structure. And instead of jettisoning that structure and creating a functional society for everybody, they retained that structure of divide et impera, divide and conquer, in order to sit atop the pyramid of power. Okay? Every other person, you guys should be busy killing each other, attacking each other, antagonizing each other, while the elite cut off your resources and your wealth for their own, to their own avaricious estates. That is what is happening. So Nigeria never escaped colonialism. We escaped Western imperialism and then assumed a local colonialism where the white men in black faces continued exploiting the rest of us for their own private benefits. That's what is happening today. Look at your politicians. What did they do once they get to the legislature the first time? They pass bills on their salaries, not for education, not for defense against insecurity and all the rest of them. The majority of the budget is security vote, which the governors pocket. Okay? So what actually is functional about our society? I don't see it because it's made to be so. The British created it in Nigeria, and the Nigerian elite took it over and have kept sustaining it to this moment. And this house of cards is not sustainable anymore. So the Americans are coming in to tell us, look, you guys, your asses are smelling. We can smell that from thousands of miles away. And now we are scrambling to find a response, although we Nigerians have been warning the whole time. The cries of the mothers in the Middle Belt, whose kids were murdered by this terrorist we call Boko Haram or Fulani Herdsmen, the cries of the villages, the cries of the churches out there. Nigerian government stuffed its ears about it. Now the Americans are coming to tell us, hey, you guys are killing Christians and you guys are tolerating it. And then we are saying, no, everybody is being killed together. Yes, there are Muslim victims, but what has the Nigerian government done to ameliorate that or stop those killings? Nothing. Nothing tangible till this moment. How many terrorists have Nigerian government prosecuted in the court of law? How many have been convicted? Those that were arrested and kept in jail, they will tell us that Boko Haram came and then bombed the jails and they all escaped. So what can Nigeria show to the world that we are fighting insecurity, that we are fighting terror in our backyard? At this moment, I'm sorry, nothing.
We'll take a break here on the Eastern Eye. Dr. Ogbunweze, when we return, we'll continue this conversation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Eastern Eye here on Afia TV, a program that X-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. My name is Alex Ogbodo, right here in Enugu, southeast Nigeria. And Dr. Franklin Onyemaechi is out there in Germany, and technology has made it easy for us to communicate as if nothing is in the distance. The U.S. decision to reinstate sanctions has sparked debate about efficacy of such measures in promoting human rights. Help us provide some insight into the potential impact of these sanctions on the ground in Nigeria. What would it look like when they turn on the heat of the sanctions?
Oh well, sanctions are mostly targeted at the elite of the country. They will deny them visas, and then they will seize their assets. Many African leaders are so foolish that they don't even know how to steal. They steal money from their own people and dump it in Western capitals. So these countries have access to them, and then they can trace their monies at wherever they're hiding them, and then seize those assets. And then other things like preventing Nigeria gaining access to the capital markets to borrow money, because you saw President Tinubu asking the lawmakers to grant him the permission to borrow money to fund the 2025 or budget. So a lot of things could adversely impact Nigeria if sanctions are introduced by the American government. The American government has that kind of reach and power to inflict serious damage on any country using the power of sanctions. Even our access to weapons to fight terror will be in jeopardy if the Americans decide on that measure. But the interesting thing is whether the United States impose sanctions on Nigeria or not. The Nigerian government shouldn't have needed or waited for any government or any country to tell it to live up to its statutory responsibilities of securing the lives and properties of its citizens. Today, I read Wiki saying that it was the opposition that made the American government decry the killing of Christians in Nigeria. And this dovetails into what I said, that there is a poverty of ideas in the decision-making bodies in Nigeria. Somebody like Wiki is a minister in a government, and instead of proffering a response that will be adequate to the gravity of the issues on the ground, he is pointing fingers at the opposition. Okay, Daniel Boala represented Tinubu. He's the special assistant to the president on media policy and so what, and he was gushing out, irrelevancies on a foreign television for a foreign audience, blaming the opposition. And Wiki, if this is the narrative, I wonder. I don't know. Nigeria is I saw a graffiti somewhere in Nigeria last time I visited. The graffiti read, "Nigerians, paddle your own canoes. Your leaders are goats." And this is true. Watching the utterances coming from the Nigerian government, represented by these two individuals. So it's really awful. So my major fear is that when sanctions set, it will affect the ordinary people harshly, than it will affect the elite, because the elite have already feathered their nests, so they will always know how to escape or get over those sanctions. But the common ordinary Nigerian will be at the heaviest brunt of it all. So that's always my fear, because we saw it in Syria. The American government imposed an excruciating sanction on the Syrian government. But Assad and his inner circle were living well. They knew how to circumvent that sanction. But the ordinary people were hard hit. And that's what is going to happen in this case. And if the Americans think that it will force Nigerians to overthrow their government, it didn't happen in Syria, so I don't see it happening in Nigeria as well. But the thing is, if this is an opportunity for Nigerians to have a rethink over the direction our country is heading towards.
So, it looks like each direction you turn, there is some scary signs for the country. The ordinary people, if there's anything like that, will be at the receiving end of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, at what point will the government listen and make the right decisions and engage the U.S. in a way that will make them see reasons and not turn on the sanctions?
Well, the point is, we didn't elect the Nigerian government to listen to the United States. We elected the Nigerian government to do right by us. It's because they are not doing right by us that foreigners are coming in to tell them you are not doing right by your own people. If the ruling party in Nigeria turns around to do right by the people, the American government wouldn't have a cause. Okay? If it invents a cause to invade Nigeria or threaten Nigeria, everybody will know that this is, under flimsy excuses. But the point is that there is a consistent, consistent evidence that there is a genocide by installment going on in the Middle Belt. People are being massacred every other day. There is demographic displacement across the Middle Belt. In 2020, when I was appointed the director of Genocide Prevention in Africa at the CSI in Switzerland, I toured the whole of the Middle Belt and the northern Nigeria. I spoke to community leaders, to religious leaders, to politicians. Okay? And you will come to know and come to see that these issues are there. They have been there. But the government kept ignoring them. It was worse under the administration of Muhammadu Buhari. The president, Muhammadu Buhari, used stuffs to close off his ears to the cries of the people in the Middle Belt and northern Nigeria, the bandits of around the place. And we have large stretches of ungoverned spaces across the north and the Middle Belt of Nigeria because people were being slaughtered and they were forced to leave their homes. And the government did nothing. The government stood and watched. Okay? The government was even proffering defense for the terrorists that were slaughtering these people. It continued under Tinubu. Tinubu has not been able to articulate a clear policy against these terrorists and these Fulani headsmen that have been slaughtering people in Nigeria. So now comes the American government to say, enough of this, we are going to come in. And the government is now jittery. What have they been doing the past decade? Nothing. Okay, so I don't, Nigerian government is just, is actually a disappointment. That's what it is. So in order to forestall the sanction, I don't know what they can do at this time. All they need to do is to ditch the narratives peddling. All they need to do is just to get to work. Roll up their sleeves, get to work. Read the Riot Act on the service chiefs. We need to get this under control. Anybody who's not ready to do his job is fired already. And then listen, Sani Abacha said something that was quite instructive. He said, any insurgency or terrorism that lasts more than 2 days, that the government is aware of it, the government has a hand in it. And it seems to be the case in Nigeria. Remember that Goodluck Jonathan said around 2011 that members of Boko Haram are in his government. He was referring to the people who were sabotaging his efforts to actually tackle insecurity at that time. And now the chickens have come home to roost. Those people that went to Washington to report Goodluck Jonathan to Obama, that Obama should arrest him, are now in power, and they have not been able to arrest the deteriorating security situation in Nigeria. And that shows you that it wasn't about Jonathan, or it wasn't about even insecurity, it was about power grab. And they have now grabbed power. What have they been able to do with it? Yeah. Tinubu, while campaigning, said, no, let me finish this point. President Tinubu, as a candidate for the election to the office of the presidency, told his supporters to grab power, grab it, and run away with it. Now that he has grabbed power, what is he doing with it? We have not seen the results of his grabbing this power. Nigerians have been dying every other day. Blood is flowing like a river in the Middle Belt. He just grabbed power and he's resting, ensconced in Abuja, and nothing is happening. This government really needs to be seriously and heavily criticized by the people. And he's, gathering momentum for election in 2027. No such government should be rewarded with a second term in office. But what do I know?
So, if the U.S. maybe attacks the country, for instance, if they bring boots to the ground, is there a guarantee that the problem will be solved? Remember, the U.S., they've done this in other countries. Did they solve the problem when they bring boots to your country?
I don't want the United States to invade Nigeria. Many Americans don't even know their geography. They will be bombing other places. Now look at it. William Bloom, in my view, one of the leading American intellectuals of the past, 30, 40 years. He wrote a wonderful book titled America's Deadliest Export. And America's deadliest export has been democracy and freedom. In the name of democracy and freedom, America has bombed almost half the planet. It didn't work in Afghanistan. It didn't work in Syria. It didn't work in Libya. Okay? It's not going to work in Nigeria. Nigeria is a very complex society. Before George Bush marched into Iraq in 2003, he was singing Kumbaya, that the Iraqis will welcome the American soldiers as liberators with flowers. And what happened? It didn't take a year. It turned to insurgency. America should keep her boots on the ground. They should actually stop supporting those who are making life difficult for Africans and Nigerians. That's all we are asking for. Okay? But I am glad that at least Tinubu and the Nigerian ruling elite, who are shameless, have been reminded by an external force that their asses are not covered. So at least that will shock them into doing right by their own people. But as for invading Nigeria, I wouldn't think that it's feasible, and it's not going to work. America should better be warned. Nigeria is more complex than what their agents and or what the embassies tell them about. Nigeria is a deeply complex society. Sending boots on the ground will end up like Somalia.
So either way, it is difficult. Which one is easier to do? The government,
the Nigerian people
fixing
should
the
rise
country.
up. No, the easiest thing is that the Nigerian people should rise up and kick a dysfunctional government out of power. Simple. And then articulate the kind of society they want to live in. Shakespeare wrote it beautifully. He says that every bondsman in his hands lies the keys to cancel his captivity. We are our saviors. We are the people we are waiting for. That was what Obama said. Nobody is coming from without to save us. We are the ones to save ourselves. The day Nigerians rise up to say enough is enough, I tell you, this problem will be in the past tense. Nigerians seem to have this elastic propensity to endure evil. Okay, we keep on going to church to pray. While the elites are very busy stealing our resources and stealing our future out of the sky, and then letting our society rot and letting our society degenerate into a conflict zone. The day Nigerians rise up with one voice and say, we are tired of this nonsense, all these things will end. We don't need a foreign power coming in to intervene for us. Nigerians can do it themselves. Listen, power is simply opinion. That these elites have power is because we agreed that they have power. The day we say, no, we don't agree anymore, this power that they claim to have will just disappear. And they know it. And that's why they spend every money to manipulate public opinion. Power is public opinion. If the public opinion is favorable to you, you are powerful. If it is not, you are not. Nigerians should withdraw their opinion from their dysfunctional governance systems, and then try to find something better for themselves. That is the only solution to this problem. Until that happens, we will be spending our time in our ethnic cocoons saying that this thief that is my brother is a better thief than the other thief from the other ethnic group. And the problem will never have an end. Nigerians are the ones to save themselves. If they are waiting for America, if they are waiting for God to come and save them, sorry. God will never do for us the things he has given us the capabilities to do for ourselves. Sophocles said it. Heavens will never help those who never act. So if we are still waiting for somebody to come from without, we will keep waiting forever. The Americans will not do it for us. We are the ones to do it ourselves.
So, I mean, you made a point that is quite resounding, and that's the people have the power, but do they know that they have the power? You talked about opinions. Some people have resigned to what you might call a piteous fate. Is it possible? Is it possible that the people can maybe wake up and shake off the shackles of ignorance, whatever it is that is holding the people of Nigeria down from actually staking a claim and saying that this is our country and that's what it is?
Well, yeah, this is what people like me are there for. Why do we do public intellection? We do public intellection because we want to let our people know that you are the one to liberate yourself. Nobody is going to come to force the truth into your head. Okay? And in 2003, I wrote a a conference paper titled Education in the Quest for Responsible Governance in Africa. Without education, without an educated populace, democracy or whatever we call it will never function. Look at it this today. We have majority of educated Nigerians abroad, out of Nigeria, because they are looking for a better future. But Chinua Achebe warned us that he doesn't have a right to go and enjoy a place tidied by someone else's intelligence. And he is correct about that. Even myself, I'm ashamed of it, that I'm enjoying a society tidied up by someone else's intelligence. Okay? But that's why I am forced to become a public intellectual, to talk about the issues that actually affect my country. We can do it if we want to. It's not just moral suasion or preaching to the choir. Hell no. Other societies have done it. It is the people coming together, recognizing that they have a common stake in a society. But the politicians are very, very wily, and they are very, very smart. So once they see that movement coming together, look at the young people that came together to vote for Peter Obi across all divides in Nigeria. Okay, what did the politicians do? They went to Lagos, because Peter Obi defeated Tinubu in Lagos State. Across the ethnic divide, they went to Lagos and then said it's the Igbo man trying to come and tell them what is happening in Lagos. And they were ready to abjure themselves to accuse a Yoruba son, Vivo Rhodes, that he's an Igbo bastard, so that he wouldn't win. So whenever the people come together to start off a movement to liberate themselves from the shackles and fetters of these vagabonds in power, the vagabonds are very smart. They don't want to leave. So they introduce another narrative, and then they secure the majority of the unthinking masses, and then they follow them. This is what is happening in Nigeria today. Peter Obi told the younger generations, these people are embezzling your future. It is your right to take your future by the horns. And then people came through the back door and said, hey, it's an ethnic thing. Peter Obi is Igbo. And that's the only job that Reno Omokri have in Nigeria today, to make sure that there is no coalition of young Nigerians who are willing to retrieve their stolen patrimony from these useless politicians. And they hired somebody who looked like a young person, but who is a profiteer from the system, Reno, and another profiteer from the system, Daniel Bwala. And what are they going about telling people? Anything that you talk about in Nigeria that will lead to progress, they will make it an ethnic thing. Okay? Either ethnic or religious thing. And then the people will, saunter into their ethnic holes and cocoons and then start fighting each other. There is no it's Davide et Impera. It's an ancient ancient trick. And so that's the only way, is for people to realize that poverty. Peter Obi said something that is very important. I'm not campaigning for him. I'm just stating the fact. Poverty doesn't know Musa in Zamfara, or it doesn't hit us differently. You don't buy bread cheaper than you buy it in Enugu or in Zamfara state. The poverty cuts across all major spectrum of the Nigerian society today. So it is the job of Nigerians to come together to say enough of this. Until we are ready to say that, we are not making a headway. Nobody is ready to die in Nigeria. Everybody wants to live till 99 years old. But your society, what you have is not even a life. It's not worth living. We have not examined our lives as a people. And Socrates once said it, an unexamined life is not worth living. That's why we are vegetating in Nigeria, thinking that we are existing. We are just vegetating.
And I never get tired of repeating the words of great Zik of Africa, that common dangers and common enemies alert us on the need for common security. I have to thank you so much, Dr. Franklin Onyemaechi Ogbunweze, independent human rights consultant and former director for genocide prevention in Africa at the CSI in Switzerland. Thank you. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for the insights.
It's been my pleasure, Alex. Thank you very much.
And that's the Eastern Eye for tonight. We'll be here tomorrow, same time, for another episode of the program. My name is Alex Ogbodo. Thank you for watching. Good night.